It is being bold. It is being brilliant. It's being non-apologetic about what we're doing.
We had to leverage those abilities and just to come to the table and execute like never before.
Bring in capable people, coach them, make sure they're connected to the outcome, and let them run.
As a leader and with your team, have to have the will to win.
Connecting more with our humanity and, pausing for a moment to be the human beings that we are.
But with humility, you know that you can leverage that skill set that people have and let them be their best.
This will be a time of innovation.
Hi, and welcome to Courageous Leadership in Times of Global Crisis and Uncertainty, an HMG live virtual briefing covering what matters most to drive a winning agenda and make the future a better place. A warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good morning. Good morning to those folks in the West, and good day for the folks in the middle of the country, and good afternoon for our audience attendees attending in the East. I'm Hunter Muller, lead principal of the HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here. Welcome to HMG Live, the 2020 Seattle CIO Virtual Summit, Reimagining the Business and the Future of Work, what you need to know now. Real excited to be here today with you. We have an amazing program, an awesome agenda. Stay with us right to the end when we have a little networking reception. Hopefully you can stay dialed in to the very end. And thanks for attending. So, big shout out to our partners today. Today's powered by Darktrace, Pure Storage, and Zoom. Really appreciate your support and engagement. Without Darktrace, Pure Storage, and Zoom's sponsorship and engagement, we simply wouldn't have kept dialed in. But please reach out to them and be part of their journey, as they are all three exceptional companies and doing some really interesting things across the enterprise. So we've been busy since we pivoted digitally with CIO and CISO Virtual Summits, partner-powered Zoomcasts or podcasts, and an amazing array of summits and series. Almost every week we'll be doing 2, 3, 4 opportunities to get dialed into the HMG platform. Upcoming events. Well, first off, we are really excited about our digital and virtual presence in social media. Some 100,000 impressions weekly alone via LinkedIn as well as Twitter. Hopefully you're dialed into that feed so you can dial into what we're working on and sharing with our friends and partners across the network, as well as the HMG research agenda, over 1 million impressions a week worldwide. So we have a full set of series, a full set of summits coming up. Friday, the New York Global Innovation Summit, Philly next week, June 30th, and then financial services in July 1st, and then an Okta webinar here right around the corner. So please dial in. So again, thanks for zooming in. Let's get on with the program. First up, gives me a lot of pleasure and excited to have Kirsten Wolberg join us. She's the CTO and CDO of DocuSign. Kirsten, welcome to the program.
I'm muted, so thank you. It's great to be here.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And boy, it's great to have you in person in the Valley or in San Francisco. It's even more of a special treat, Kirsten, to have you zoom in with us to be with us on our virtual summit series.
Thank you.
So a little bit about DocuSign, little update. You guys have been on an incredible tear. The stock is taking off in this new work from home environment, but you were incredibly successful before then as well. What is it about the culture? What's unique about the DocuSign culture that you want to talk about?
The DocuSign culture, we have 3 words that really embody our culture. And we look at each of these values from the perspective of our employees, from the perspective of our customers, and also from the perspective of the world. And so our 3 core values that really define our culture are agreeable. We want to make the world more agreeable, certainly through the products that we offer. Also, our second value is loved. And we really want to make a product that people love. I love working at DocuSign because every time I tell someone I work at DocuSign, they say, I love DocuSign, and it feels really good to have a product that really eliminates friction and makes it easier to do, your job. And for our employees, we want to make it the best place they could possibly work so they love their jobs. The final value that we have is responsible. And this is so relevant in today's times. It's responsible certainly through the impact foundation that we have in DocuSign for forests, but also in Black Lives Matter. And how do we as a company go into our communities and make a difference and make an impact? We are responsible for our actions. We are responsible for making this world a better place.
Awesome. Really inspiring, Kirsten. You know, we're a lot about leading, reimagining, reinventing the future. And that depends on a tech leader and a C-suite that's highly creative. So with that kind of a cultural value of love and creativity, I mean, talk to us a little bit about that, because creative synapses happen when people are in the right mindset, when you're in the right state, correct?
Absolutely. For DocuSign, we spent years as a digital signature company and had a really great business as a digital signature company. But as the leadership team and the executive team came together and we were looking at IPO, so this was April of 2018, and said, is this really our vision? Is this our ambition in the world? And we recognized and realized that digital signature is really just kind of the tip of the iceberg. It certainly is one of the biggest pain points. But if you look at the entire end-to-end system of agreement, as we call it, if you look at what happens in an agreement, first you prepare that agreement, then you sign the agreement, then you act on all the terms that are in the agreement, and then you analyze and manage those agreements. So that entire end-to-end, what if we could actually do what we did for e-signature across that entire life cycle of the agreement? And that is what birthed the Agreement Cloud and has really led us from an acquisition perspective, has led us from a product development perspective, and has gotten us to a place with our customers where we truly are digitizing the entire end-to-end.
Awesome. Really fascinating stuff. So, Kirsten, talk to me a little bit about recruiting and retaining in this pandemic environment.
We are fortunate and blessed to still be hiring. I have 40 open positions in my organization. So if any of you who are watching know people who need a job, send them to DocuSign. We are hiring, and I imagined what it would be like for a candidate to be interviewing for a job and possibly even taking a job without ever having met people in person and without ever seeing the office. So we did a bunch of fun stuff the week before, I could see this shelter in place coming. So a week before, we did all these videos of the office space and kind of what it's like actually working in this space. And we have used those videos throughout our recruiting processes. We're collaborating in new ways, virtual whiteboards through interviews and things for the technical interviews. And when folks come on board, I have, 2 or 3 times a week, I do an Ask Me Anything session. So everybody from the entire organization can just come in and ask. And it gives the new hires an ability to meet a lot of people and to learn a lot of about DocuSign. And another fun thing we do, I'm a dancer in my spare time. So we do dance breaks. So 2 or 3 times a week, we'll do a 10-minute dance break and everybody can get their wiggle out and have a lot of fun at the same time. So our new hires are coming into the culture that I talked about up front, and we are working really hard to preserve that culture and be able to still have it live and breathe, even though you aren't in person. It's really, when you actually go into interview for a job and you go into that environment, you can kind of feel what it's like. When you walk into a DocuSign, it feels very different than if you were walking into a financial institution, let's say. So it's just a very different feel, and you don't have that feel over Zoom. So we're trying to create that feel even though we are in this virtual space.
A little bit about your relationship with the C-suite, the CEO. Can you comment on that at all?
Yes. So when I left my background, I was Salesforce, and then I was at PayPal and now at DocuSign. And I left PayPal. My plan was I was going to do a portfolio of boards. I didn't think I was going to have another operating career. But my phone rang and it was Dan Springer, who is our CEO. Dan and I have served on the same nonprofit board Year Up, and I'm in my non-work space. When I'm in my community, it's for workforce development, and Year Up is one of the companies, or one of the nonprofits I've been working with for about 15 years now. And so Dan and I have been on that board, and he called and said, hey, listen, I really think you should come talk to us at DocuSign. And I said, no. And apparently he was very persuasive, because ultimately I said yes, and he was right and I was wrong. So I was very glad that he was persuasive, as he was, and really honored to be part of just an incredible leadership team.
Awesome story. You know, when you think about productivity and impacts across the organization, working from home, have you seen an increase, a decrease, that's about the same?
So we've actually seen an increase in productivity, and I don't think it's from the work from home. I think it's from the demands of the business. And it is in spite of the fact that we are working from home that we have the productivity that we have. We truly have seen a tremendous response in the marketplace, and it's all hands on deck. And it's all hands on deck from early in the morning till late at night. And we're follow the sun. We've got offices around the globe, and we are working really, really hard.
What's the biggest aha, Kirsten? What have you learned during this crisis?
You know, I think for the development teams, I think the fact that we can be this productive working remotely, I think that was a big surprise. We are an Agile shop, and Agile, you know, the core tenets of Agile are small teams co-located. I mean, that's a word, co-located, and we are anything but co-located right now. So the fact that we still have the ability to be this productive, I think that we did an acquisition. We finalized our acquisition of Cio on May 1st. So literally a lot of the work leading up to the acquisition was in the middle of a pandemic. So we learned we could acquire a company completely remotely. And I think that was a surprise. It's been really fun bringing on the acquired Cio employees into DocuSign and figuring out how to do all of that remotely has been quite an experience. And, you know, you talked about innovation. These kinds of, you know, innovation is brought on by constraints. And we are living in constrained times. And so the amount of innovation that is coming out of these times is actually really inspiring.
You know, we're broadcasting into the market of Seattle. And I can think of beyond Silicon Valley, Seattle has some incredibly successful, incredibly innovative companies. What can we learn from the Seattle companies as it relates to Silicon Valley?
What I would say is DocuSign is a Seattle company. We were founded in Seattle, based in Seattle for the first, I think, 10 years of our tenure. And our largest, even today, our largest office is Seattle. So DocuSign is a Seattle company, and we can learn a lot from DocuSign. But we also have many people at DocuSign that are from, you know, the big giants in the Washington State area, you know, from Amazon, from Microsoft. And, you know, I think for us, where the value that we are learning is how to scale and how to grow rapidly. And in hiring individuals who come from these backgrounds, they've sort of seen this movie and they know how to navigate it. So we have been blessed to have so many alumni from these great companies who have learned how to do things at scale, have learned how to enter new products. When I joined just, you know, almost 3 years ago, we were a single product company. And we are now a multi-product company, and it's not an easy shift. I mean, I did the same transition at Salesforce. We went from just CRM or Salesforce automation back then, what it was called, to the Force.com platform, and then the many, many products that followed from there. It is a really heavy lift and a really difficult shift. And so I think there aren't a lot of SaaS-based companies that have reached the $1 billion mark and have the multi-product suite. And so we are learning from all of those who have gone before us in our journey.
Kirsten, it's great to be here with you here digitally and virtually. Closing comment, exciting and best time ever to be a tech leader?
You know, I don't like working from home, Hunter. So I can't bring myself to say to you in all honesty that it is the best time ever to be doing anything. I really can't wait to get back to work. But what I will say is the great leaders of the future needed to develop this skill of how to lead, how to motivate, how to inspire remotely and virtually. And we are all getting a crash course in how to do that. And this is a skill that we will all take with us into our future careers, and it will serve us well.
Excellent, Kirsten. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Next up, Gary Sorrentino, Global Deputy CIO of Zoom. Gary, welcome to the program.
Hi, Hunter. How are you? Thank you for having us.
Great to be with you here today. Hey, Gary, a little background on Zoom. You guys are on such a tear. You're doing so well. Give us an update, please.
So a little background. So about 6 months ago, I started Zoom sometime in December, and they were mostly focused on enterprise clients. The pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, we started taking care of schools and consumers, a lot of different type of companies, and a lot of different business cases, use type cases. As you can imagine, enterprises, they treat SaaS software a little differently. Enterprises treat software where they're going to set it up the way their risk profile is and train their users. What do you do with regular users? And so we ended up being the IT shop, for lack of a better word, for the EDUs. And we had to make some of those decisions on how to set things up correctly. We had to make some changes. So this way, the consumer model would work and we wouldn't see meeting interruptions and things like that. It's been an exciting journey. We went from 10 million average daily participants to 200 million, and then the following month, 300 million. So we're at a very good place now. The company came together on our 90-day journey on security. We rolled out version 5.0, and we're ending, I think today is day 86, maybe 85 of the 90-day journey. And end-to-end is next as an optional type of encryption. So it has been a great journey helping lots and lots of companies and keeping companies productive, collaborative, keeping students learning. And besides that, we've been keeping families together. I know everybody today listening we have Zocktails, and I meet my 90-year-old mother on Zoom. We've had weddings. There's actually a great site that just came up. It's called onzoom.com. It just opened yesterday, I believe. And there's so many different varieties of people using Zoom in a positive way. It's about our journey, right? Delivering happiness.
Exciting times for you guys. When you think about the enterprise and increased productivity, just a year ago, people weren't so dialed into the digital video experience. And now with Zoom, because it's so easy and so friendly, everyone's doing it, right? So what are you hearing from clients around the world and success stories around the world and lessons learned from basically using the Zoom platform?
I think, well, it's a multi-part question, so let's break that down. As far as people using it, it's extremely simple to use. And from a stability standpoint, it just works. So those are things that enterprises look for. When we started to roll this out around the world, as enterprises rolled it around the world, it needed a product that it didn't need to train very much on and didn't need to provide a lot of support because people are home. And it's not like you're down the hall. It's not like we can call up the local IT guy. IT shops didn't want to become geek squads. They didn't want to have to service people at home, and which they ended up doing anyway. So we're hearing that the product is allowing people to focus on collaboration, focus on innovation, and not focus on trying to make things work. One of the best features is to share. And you'll do sharing, I'm sure, through your webinar today. And it's basically click the share button and you're sharing. And so those things are really making it easier without the delays or the frustration sometimes associated with video. I think also because people are using it in their personal lives, it's become a very friendly tool, and Zoom's become a verb actually, after a while. You said it 3 times, right? At the end of the day, we're Zooming and things like that. So I think that using it in our professional lives to add productivity and innovation, and then using it in our personal lives to stay connected with our families has helped a lot.
I can think of not a better time to have a platform like Zoom right now when companies have to innovate to survive. Kirsten pointed it out. I'm a big fan of the idea of innovation comes from restricting resources, but accelerating the culture, accelerating the innovative, creative thinking. A little thoughts on that relative to Zoom?
Yeah, I think Zoom has allowed people to focus better, to get the one-to-one conversations out. It used to be if you knew tribal knowledge, you were very good in a company, and today we move from the one-to-one to the one-to-many. Middle managers are now learning how to support their staff over a product like Zoom. That managing while walking around is not the way of the future. It wasn't really the way of the past, but it was there. And today, managers had to figure out, how do I manage my staff and keep them productive, collaborative, all the great words, while I'm virtual? And so as managers were struggling with being virtual and not having that water cooler conversation, not having that, maybe I'll walk by Gary's cube and see how he's doing, has changed a lot. And so I think right now, we have actually changed the way we work together for the better. I hope that we carry all the lessons learned in this period right now into the future.
I noticed, Gary, that there's a little bit of a language similarity between Zoom's culture and the DocuSign culture, this notion of being heartfelt or love.
Absolutely. I was listening when Christine talked, and Eric's about, when I first started with the company and I met Eric, it was about delivering happiness and doing that for our employees, our clients, and our community. And so Zoom is a great company to work for. It really does care about all 3 of those to the nth degree. We want to deliver happiness to our clients. We want to make them as successful as we can. We want to make sure that our employees are happy. They talk to the employees. They talk to the clients. Part of our 90-day journey was inviting clients in to talk to them. I run the CISO Council for Zoom, and we brought in 35 of the most prestigious CISOs to talk to them about our plans and to get advice. And I'm not used to that from the companies I worked for prior. And so when I got to Zoom, I found out that is the way we do things. We speak with our clients, we deliver happiness. And so it was great to hear Kirsten talk.
Like Kirsten's CEO, you have a really unique CEO. A little bit on that?
He's great. I met him for the first time in San Jose on my 4th day, and I was a contractor. And we had an unbelievable conversation. And I've been privileged to work for some of the larger firms in the world. And the presence that Eric has when you're with him is amazing. We joked about one thing that I said, well, what do you hear the client say? And he said, well, what do you hear the client say? And we both talked about it just works. And we were on a webinar the other day just joking about it. But his presence and his dedication to the employees and the clients and the industry itself is, you can't find a better person for it. He's a great person to work for and a great person to work with.
He's got an amazing success story, an amazing journey right through to this country. Hey, when you think about lessons learned, right, when we adjust to this new normal, whatever the new normal is, what does CIOs and CISOs need to be thinking about now?
Well, so my vision is we're not in the new normal. My vision is we're evolving. I think that myself and other employees around the world have changed their value system. They figured out what they want. I'm no longer the typical baby boomer mentality. I might even be more like a millennial now. I enjoy, unlike the prior speaker, I enjoy working from home. I think that going forward, CIOs need to do something that is probably a little bit not known to us before. We did it in a small way, but we need to really talk to the employees and embrace their values. And let's not think we know what their values are, because I think they've changed a lot. People have dealt with isolation impact. They've dealt with video fatigue. They've dealt with work-life challenges. They've dealt with, hey, multiple large families in small homes. They've changed the way they think about their personal life, the way they want to move forward in their career, and how they want to go back to work. And they want to work the way they want to work. So I think you need to embrace your employee values and have those conversations. I think the second thing is you need to support the way that they want to work. Don't challenge it anymore. If they want to work from home, find out how they can work from home. If they want to work in a hybrid environment, which I think is coming and will be one of our difficult environments, but if they want to work in a hybrid environment, support it. I think the last thing you need to do is surround them with the tools and the technology that they need, but not the old way of doing it. The old way of doing it was find technology that the corporation likes or the enterprise likes, put it on the desktop, train them how to use it, and walk away. And I think going forward, it's more about how do they want to work and how do they want those tools to work? And that's adding to the productivity. One of the things I see is allowing people to work the way they want to work. And by allowing them to work the way they want to work is really increasing productivity. Yes, we're working longer hours, and that's part of the work-life challenges. But I think allowing people to work the way they want to work is going to really be the successful company going forward, who listens to their employees, supports the way they want to work. Because remember, I don't need to be near the local office anymore to work for that company like before, and provide them with the technology that they need. Because people and technology going forward, that is going to be our new killer combination.
I couldn't agree with you more. Gary, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the program.
Always great to see you.
Great job. Keep it up.
Talk to you soon.
See you soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Next up, JR Tsort, CISO for Americas for Darktrace. JR, welcome.
Hi, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great to see you here virtually and digitally. Last time we were in Phoenix together, I think in person.
Yes, good times.
Little context about Darktrace. Set the stage. Why Darktrace? Why does Darktrace matter now?
Well, I think now it's, I think, more imperative than ever to have full visibility of what data moves around in your organization and how to think about that, how to think about employees in and outside of the classic work campus. You know, we've talked already on this call about the new normal, about the evolution of the workforce, work from home, work on site. So Darktrace is helping security teams take all of this into context and understand where people and data are moving throughout their company, regardless of where that person's sitting.
So you have a bunch of new things, new technologies that you've been rolling out over the past year. Tell us what's new at Darktrace and why it's making a difference.
You know, part of the focus that has really clarified for us over the past quarter in this pandemic situation is how could we better support security teams? How could we better support the risk functions of organizations? And so from a product side, that's meant, you know, redirecting much of our development team, as other companies have. But our focus has been improving visualization of data that organizations tend to already have, but thinking about that much more in terms of identities and employees, as opposed to just networks and devices. And this is a subtle change, and it's data that already existed, but from a visualization perspective, it's much more impactful as we think about a workforce in a hybrid environment. You know, part of our contributions as well in the near term was really expanding our services offering to not only the National Health Service in the UK, completely complementary, but also reaching out with our analyst services to our existing customer base right when the pandemic hit, and just giving them a little bit of help in terms of how they're responding to the incredible spike of phishing campaigns, how they think about many employees moving off site. So we looked for opportunities where we could backstop our existing customers with resources at our disposal to make some short-term impacts to the situation.
Hey, JR, you have an amazing background, including being a CISO for a Fortune 50 company. Little context of your background and why you came to Darktrace. I I think you probably love the product, right?
I did. I fell in love with the product years ago. I built and ran the cybersecurity program for a US-based semiconductor, and learned a lot of lessons throughout that experience, both at home and abroad. And what we learned at that point was just the security team dealing with a massive amount of data. The better job we did in gathering telemetry, the harder it was to see things happening within the data, within the noise. And so we went out to look after, a machine learning approach to these data sets, and tried a few products, stumbled upon Darktrace a number of years ago. And we fell in love with the tech over time because it just continued surfacing really high quality concerns and situations. I fell in love with the company culture through a number of relationships built with the executive team and others throughout that experience. So when I got the opportunity to join the company last fall, I jumped at it because it was just this great marriage of tech and culture that I fit very well into.
JR, AI, artificial intelligence, is a pretty broad area. Can you talk to us a little bit about Darktrace's approach to AI and why that matters?
Well, yeah, it's important to clarify, broad AI or wide AI versus narrow AI. We're not trying to build Skynet here. We're designing a very narrow AI for the specific support of security teams. And that really comes in a couple of different flavors. One, looking at AI-based investigation and triage, and looking at all of the security events, all of the data moving through the organization, and regularly looking for related anomalies across a very large data set. And then once those are found, stitching them together, understanding a timeline, putting together all of the context around that, and then delivering it to a human to make some decisions with. And that's very powerful when you think about organizations with limited staff, sometimes getting by with junior level staff. This is a force multiplier for them. The other AI that we invented and have done very well at for a number of years is autonomous response, and being able to, once an event is detected and we see data moving or we see some sort of identity compromise, the AI can act in real time and shut that down and really prevent threats against multiple parts of your enterprise before a human could really even comprehend that something is going on, acting in seconds instead of minutes or hours or days that we see from some human teams. And this can make the difference in a ransomware attack between success and failure. And it's this ability to act quickly that really helps our customers shut down insider threats, shut down ransomware, and really eliminate a lot of risk out of their organization.
Excellent. Thank you. Hey, JR, we've learned a lot in global disruption, all of us, right, through this pandemic and the COVID crisis. What did Darktrace learn most regarding helping your clients through this very difficult time?
We've learned a lot of the same lessons that others on this call have already stated, and I'm sure you'll hear more today. We learned about work from home and collaboration and what that means for teams that previously felt like they needed to be side by side. So internal as a culture, we learned and evolved as many others did. I think when we looked at our customer base and when we started reaching out and proactively having conversations with our customers and just asking them, hey, do you need some help? We found an enormous response, and in some cases able to help folks that had just previously overlooked configurations or how their particular traffic was shaped in their network. And so just by proactively engaging with those customers and just asking, can we help? Ended up driving a lot of relationship building conversations. And that was, something that I was proud to take part in and be a part of. I learned things along the way. And so it's caused us to think more and more about what can we do? What should we be doing? What else can we do to ensure that our customers are getting the best protection they can and reducing the risk as much as possible out of their network?
As we move into this new area, hybrid area of splitting work from home and work back in the office, what are the threats or issues that we might expect to come up against?
Well, it'll be another round of phishing campaigns, much like we saw when people went off site and you got all the COVID related phishing campaigns and lures to click here to learn more. We'll see another round of that when people start going back into the building, and there'll be a phishing campaign that says, click here to see how your building procedures work, right? So that's become the norm now, and every time some event happens in the world, it's followed by a round of phishing. And frankly, that's fairly commodity these days and easy to deal with. I think the more interesting challenge that some organizations are going to run into, not all, is they've taken their endpoints, their laptops off campus to a home network, which may or may not be clean, may not know what other devices or people are on that network using that data. And now they're going to bring that device back onto the corporate network. And that's really a lot of the conversations that I'm having with folks now are about what kind of cleaning procedures or checks should be done before that device is let back into the building, not unlike temperature checks for humans when we walk back into the building. And so these are going to be kind of the next challenges for the IT teams and the security teams to think about in terms of reintroducing laptops that have been outside the campus for a while.
Gotcha. Hey, JR, thanks for coming on the program. Really appreciate it. How can we reach out to you to learn more?
Well, website is darktrace.com. There's lots of people that would love to talk to you. I'm always available on LinkedIn as well if anyone wants to reach out and talk further. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks for your support and thanks for coming on the program. Great job. Next up, Sangy Vatsa, founder of Digital Lakes, former CIO at Comerica Bank. Sangy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, glad to be here.
Hey,
how you doing?
Supercharge your cloud journey. Let's dive into it.
Yeah, it's a short kind of phrase. It's a pretty deep topic, and I'll maybe unpack it for our audience. But let me just maybe a quick introduction. As Hunter said, I'm Sangy Vatsa. I've held EVP, CIO, CTO, head of engineering roles across multiple financial service companies. And I've had the opportunity to drive several transformations. And these have been across Fortune brands like American Express, Ford Motor Company, most recently at Comerica Bank, and managing large-size global teams across the Americas, Europe, Asia Pacific. And through these, I would say, diverse experiences, I've been truly intrigued by software-defined computing. And this is much before cloud terms like infrastructure as a service or software as a service or platform as a service were even formalized. So I'll maybe take this topic of supercharging your cloud journey in maybe a few parts. And I would say, while there are many critical elements such as the cloud, the mobile, AI, 5G, cybersecurity that are strong enablers of transformation, I believe cloud has been one of the most foundational elements to enable large-size business transformations. And I'll start with maybe our own pitch that we made to the board. And it was something that kind of went along the line saying that it's not just about cost optimization, but it's instead kind of launching a digital transformation platform that helps elevate customer experience, speed, agility, with the continuous level of experimentation that the platform offers, while at the same time keeping your business secure and compliant. You know, like Kristen said earlier, how do you remove friction from your capabilities? So I would say, that clear articulation to the board, coupled with some early wins, such as, there were things that would take 9 months, and we got those done in 9 days. Those were some of the very foundational things that happened. And as we made the pitch, we were able to really get the approval from the regulators and from the board in record time. And that kind of did a pivot for all of us in our companies to get in the direction of a cloud-first strategy. So I'll maybe double-click on a couple of elements of a cloud journey and what are the business outcomes, but let me maybe start with polling our audience with a quick question. If we can maybe pop up the question to kind of get the feedback from the audience on their view on public cloud. So if you see the question that just popped up, over 50% of your high-risk applications will be running in the public cloud within the next 24 months. Again, the three operative words here, high-risk applications, public cloud, and within the next 24 months. So if you could maybe take a few seconds to click one of these 5 options, and we will momentarily share the results of this poll. And while we are compiling the results, I would mention that this is something that some of the companies have already achieved, or they are well on their journey to kind of get to that kind of an outcome. We are having this audience, most of the audience in this virtual summit are from Seattle. That's home to 2 of the, I would say, global leaders in cloud set of capabilities. But I've also been very, very fascinated to see the shift that has happened, within the last 5 years. And to me, 2 of the elements have played a big role. Number 1, very visible focus on security. And number 2, a very visible focus on regulatory compliance. So I think those are the elements that have really helped enable the adoption of cloud. But before we go further, do we have the results from the poll? It's very, very, again, as I said, I've been very fascinated, and I think it's proven over here as well. As you see, 90% of the people are actually talking about moving over 50% of their high-risk applications to a public cloud environment within the next 24 months. And so thank you for showing those results. So
hey, Sangy,
the other piece I thought that,
how did you ensure that it was you were secure and you were in compliance when you went on the journey?
Yeah, and I would say words only gets you up to a certain place. Your actions have to be very demonstrable and have to be very consistent. And so one of the things that we did with our comprehensive Cloud First program, there were 9 design elements that we actually implemented. For example, focus on people was the first key element of this whole program. So the kind of the focus we brought into training, upskilling our own people. We kind of brought some talent from outside as well, but there was a significant investment made internally through our CompTech, our College of Innovation and Technology, that we launched inside the bank. And through that, we launched a cloud engineering program that kind of gave people the upskilling opportunity. Over 600 people went through different levels of depth in that whole curriculum. And I think that was very, very instrumental for us to really make it part of this journey. And so the focus on regulatory compliance, the security aspects were very, very critical. The other piece in that whole program was the focus on governance. And we launched something called digital, or actually, I should say basically our DBTO, what we refer to as our Digital Business Transformation Office. And that actually itself had multiple work streams that were focused on the importance of compliance. How do we ensure that every element in that cloud ecosystem was secured more at a native level? Focus on agile, focus on DevOps, focus on operations. And so that was another element where we were not just ensuring that the compliance and security features were available from the public cloud providers, but we also implemented our own security layer through a cloud exchange. And so to me, I think those were the elements. And then what we did, Hunter, was we went about doing a disposition of every application and infrastructure asset we have in our ecosystem against a high risk, moderate risk, and a low risk. And then we took our actions for these applications from a cloud hosting perspective, very clearly articulating what had to be, for example, rehosted, what had to be replatformed, what had to be replaced, and what had to be refactored. So all of those actions, I would say, coupled with very strong offerings from these 2 cloud providers, both of them are in Seattle, and their own kind of security measures was a significant confidence booster for our regulators, for our board, for our C-suite, and for our entire
was this an infrastructure play, or was this an innovation on the edge with the customer play, or both?
So yes, it was. I would say it was a very significant focus on customers and colleagues. So definitely both, and we did not really just make a distinction on tech for the sake of tech or infrastructure only. It really looked at every aspect of that end-to-end process execution, and looked at how do you really elevate the experience, whether it's customer experience, colleague experience, and really supercharging the speed and agility of your environment. I mean, I'll just maybe highlight as we delivered these kind of results, and we did have our fair level of learning. So we got some early failures in some cases. We learned quickly. We applied those learnings. And what followed was truly transformational, and both for business and for technology side. And it truly cemented cloud first as our company's kind of unwavering strategy. So on the tech front, for example, we went from 0 applications in the cloud to 100 applications in the public cloud in less than 9 months. And many of these are high-risk applications. On the business front, we were able to really kind of implement the secure cloud based kind of capabilities across a wide range of business areas we had. So commercial banking, treasury, retail banking, things that we did even with AI-based cloud-enabled capabilities for our customer service or for fraud management. And so again, the reach was very, very significant, and the momentum was really strong.
Sangy, really, thanks for coming on the program. Really always good to see you. We'll see you on the panel here shortly, right?
All right, I'll talk to you, Hunter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great. Next up, Boyden Rohner. Boyden is the Deputy Director of Operations at the National Cybersecurity and Communications Center, NCCIC. Boyden, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Hunter. Yes, I'm with the Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency. It's good to be here. Thank you.
Great to see you. So tell us a little bit about the agency.
Yep. Well, in 2018, Congress created the newest government agency focused on securing cybersecurity and physical security of critical infrastructure. So this was probably one of the most revolutionary things to happen in government, and definitely for the cybersecurity field last couple of years. So we're part of the Department of Homeland Security. This acknowledged that that cyber and physical infrastructure are really operational elements of the Department of Homeland Security, and this act of Congress put us on par with organizations that you probably know, like TSA or ICE or Coast Guard or Secret Service. So we've been working to stand up our offices and our programs to really meet that congressional mandate.
So a little bit more, who was behind organizing this platform or this agency, and why was the timing so important? Why was it needed now?
Well, you know, a lot of work had been built over many years to really recognize the operational nature of cybersecurity and really bring together that mission of Homeland Security with the physical mission. So, you know, after the OPM breach in 2014, which really was a game changer for the federal government and a big wake-up call, a lot of work and investment had got into building up hunt teams and building up vulnerability management and doing a better job looking across all of the federal government offices and looking across all of the critical infrastructure sectors and bringing that information together and making really good use of it. And then finally, Congress recognized the importance of having an actual agency, and so they created us by name as CISA a couple of years ago.
And its mission is to?
Its mission is to, well, basically, we are the nation's risk advisor. So we are taking advantage of our unique vantage point, looking across all sectors, and really we are in the business of securing today and defending today and securing tomorrow. So looking at what we can do to help owners and operators secure their critical infrastructure today, and then prevent problems from happening in the first place later on down the road.
Fascinating. So what's CISA doing today to help secure the response to the current crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been really working hard with the COVID response related organizations. So the first thing was to identify who those were, and also to help the nation identify, who are critical workers during the time when everybody was being sent home or asked to socially distance. So we've been able to spend a lot of time doing some visualizations to help identify, where are congregations of people, or what states and how they're reacting to their stay-at-home orders. And then also, we've been publishing a lot on how to identify misinformation or disinformation that comes as a result of, the COVID-themed spear phishing attacks, and also thinking of what kind of services that we can offer those organizations that are critical to the response, and also critical to the vaccine creation.
So a little bit on your background, how you got into this position.
Well, I've been with Homeland Security since 2007. I started off my career as a naval officer, and was really interested in going into the cybersecurity field. I had a passion for leading organizations and leading change, and I thought I could bring some of my organizational development expertise to a cyber field, and so I started doing that in 2014.
So we're always interested in a public-private partnership. How can this audience get involved?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing to do, I would say, is go to the CISA.gov website and sign up for alerts. You can do that right now from your phone. You can get text messages. We post new guidance. We're always updating our COVID response page. We're always talking about the latest vulnerability information, or publishing on the latest campaigns, threat actor campaigns that we're seeing as a result of our responses. The second thing you can do is to sign up for our free services. They take the form of vulnerability scans that we give, and even if you already are paying for a service like that, you can use our service as kind of a checksum to make sure that the services you're paying for are valuable. In turn, we get the benefit of the visibility into what's going on in each critical sector, and then can really identify ways to reduce the attack surface from a federal perspective. And then lastly, if you do happen to be a victim of a cyber attack, as so often many people and many companies are, make sure that you're, reporting that to CISA.gov, so that, we can try and connect the dots and help give anonymous information that will help the whole collective get stronger together.
Excellent, Boyden. That's great. So when you think about specific things CISOs can do today in this current environment to protect themselves, any thoughts or checklist?
Yeah, one thing that we're, big thing is, making sure that their users are trained to identify, disinformation, misinformation, spear phishing campaigns, and being active about reporting that quickly if that happens. And another thing with the blossoming of using your web services, making sure that you're reducing the number of web browsers you're using, and really putting some good configuration management in there. Just making sure that you have, good controls in place.
Boyden, thanks for coming on the program today. It's always great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for your service. Great job.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully we'll see you soon. Next up, Reimagining the Business and the Future of Work, our panel. I think we have a poll before we roll right into the panel. Nikki, are we going to roll a poll? We do, right? Okay, there we go. How have your priorities changed since the pandemic? Pretty straightforward. Probably, we probably need an all button, right? Click here for all, right? Hey, first up is my good friend, Andrew Campbell, the CIO of Terex. Terex is a global company, fascinating company. Andrew, welcome to the program.
Hi, Hunter. Thank you for having me today. Excited to be here virtually.
Good to see you. I'm guessing I'm broadcasting from Westport. Any idea where you are?
I'm in Fairfield, so you and I are not too far apart.
Okay, really, really close, right. Hey, a little bit about Terex, Andrew, because it's a company, a Fortune 500 company, many people may not know much about.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't know about it until I got a phone call 3.5 years ago. But it's a pretty amazing company. We're an industrial equipment manufacturer, and we build equipment that either helps people work safely at height or other important jobs to be able to have the world that we live in. So everything from scissor lifts and booms that allow people to work on construction sites or within tall facilities, to we have machines that take big rocks and turn them into little rocks because everybody needs aggregate to be able to grow, and then a whole bunch of other things in between. We do go to market under a number of different brands, which is one of the reasons why we're probably Terex name is not known as much. There are some things that go to market under Terex. Probably the most notable, you'll see our utilities trucks. So these are the trucks that allow people to work safely at height on the power grid. And you'll see those, but another one is probably the Genie brand, and those are our booms and our scissor lifts.
You know, we always, having kids growing up, the kids love big trucks, right? And do you guys make those big mining trucks?
We used to. Which actually Volvo now makes those, but they make them under the Terex name.
Oh, fascinating.
Because they still use some of our services.
So Andrew, a little bit of scale. How big is Terex? How many plants worldwide? And then a bit more about your role in the innovation committee at Terex.
Yeah, so we're about 30 brands, and we probably have close to 45 facilities that are manufacturing around the world. Historically, we were a company of acquisitions, right? So we were brought together as a company of acquisitions. And as such, sort of the former culture was each business sort of did their own thing. Under our new CEO a few years ago, we really took a view that said, hey, we need to actually leverage the enterprise. And as part of that, one of the things we did was we did put together an innovation council. And it was made up of the CEO, the CFO, the chief strategy officer, and myself, right? And the idea was to actually figure out first, how do we bring innovation as not we have a value, which is improvement. So the notion of always making better or improving things and innovating has been part of the company values, but it wasn't on how do we do it on scale? How do we do it collectively? How do we leverage the other parts of the company to help another part of the company? And the Innovation Council really served to bring people together, and then, as I call it, pour accelerant on the things that we said, hey, those are the ones we need to double down on because it's got value beyond where it was first thought of or brought to the surface.
So what have you learned through the whole pandemic? What's popped to the surface?
So I'll tell you one of the things, and it is tied a bit to our Innovation Council that we started. So, when I joined the company, I was amazed to see that we did not have a plan to get our equipment connected, right? We had some, don't get me wrong, there were some parts of the company, individuals who knew it was a good idea. They were working on it, trying to make it happen for their product or their brand. But we didn't have that as hey, this is something the company needs to think about. So 3 years ago, we did. We put that into our plans and said, we're going to figure out how to get our equipment connected, right? Because the idea that in 5 years, things that are not connected aren't going to be interesting. And that takes a little while to get the cultural change, the idea that there's going to be value in data that we don't know what it is yet. And lo and behold, as we've hit in this pandemic, right, it's been absolutely insightful for the leadership team, product development teams. We're able to actually see, based on machine usage, how the pandemic rolled across the globe. And it's been very powerful to be able to help us redistribute resources where business was still happening. They still needed support. They still needed to make sure their machines were running. And it's also allowed us to quite frankly, figure out where are the places that we can see or anticipate coming back up based on the change in usage, and be able to be there to serve our customers first.
Andrew, Terex's number one stated goal is safety. It plays out in many different ways. How's the IT team help accelerate that?
This is an exciting thing. So I mentioned before that one of our, we have products that allow people to work safely at height. We do have a stated goal of safety as our #1 objective. Our CEO talks about it first and foremost on any company meeting, any earnings announcement, any meeting with analysts, customers, or so forth. It is always his first topic that he wants to discuss. And I looked a few years ago with my team and said, what are we as an IT organization doing to advance the safety in the company? And the short answer back to was we really weren't doing much. We would take a phone call, help out if asked, or so forth, but we weren't proactively looking at where could we bring the tools that we know about, or maybe don't even know about yet, but can help find to the organization. And just one example of a dozen now that have gone in. Before the pandemic hit, one of the things we've been working on was an alerting system to be able to alert different teams. It could be based on geography, it could be based on organization. And it turned out to be that this was a pretty useful tool as we were trying to track folks in China, as it moved to Italy. And that was just one where, had an opportunity to present to the board and share just this one thing. And they're like, you know what, we can see where the power of IT technology with those who can think about how to apply it can really add value. So one of the things that I'm challenged with and often share with the leadership team is, look, I have plenty of work. You guys have more demand on my organization than I can deal with. But if you're looking to make a process change, if you're looking at a new tool, if you're thinking of opening or closing a facility, if you want to make a product change, there's probably a technology implication. There's probably some insights that we can help provide. Bring us in for a conversation. And that is happening more and more. And the safety is a good example of that.
Andrew, you're one of HMG's top CIO of the Year award recipients, really leaning in there innovatively and courageously. Overall, with the executive team through the pandemic, what have you learned together?
It's been interesting. I've seen our we have a very well-functioning leadership team. It's great to be a part of, but I have seen them grow. I can tell you just anecdotally, I've for the last several years at my talent reviews, I get asked, why is half of my team work remote? How can you possibly be productive, right? Through this pandemic, the leadership team has seen, quite frankly, growth in the organization because not everybody didn't all have the mindset of how can you be productive at home. They were maybe used to managing by, as he said, walking around, right? Or counting butts and seats, which is not an effective way. And in fact, the leadership team was appreciative of, as the IT organization got called on to help, get everybody home, get them laptops, get them connectivity, VPN, all that stuff. Turned out that one of the other things that my team brought to him was, well, hey, let me help you show you how you can actually manage your team remotely. Let's talk about what are the metrics you manage by? What are the outputs? How are you, these are the ways you can engage them. And the leadership team recognized that. But one of the other things that they learned was how much the whole organization watches them and how they are interacting with the collaboration tools and are they using them? And I give my CEO tremendous kudos. He has, whenever he travels, which he did constantly, he'd do skip levels, right? To get the pulse of the organization. The first few weeks of being at home, he realized, hey, I haven't been connecting with the organization. How can I do that? And working together, he's now been doing skip levels and town halls that he's getting, and so personalized, right? As opposed to just broad company things, which he's also done. But he's getting lots of feedback on his use of the technology and how it's encouraged others to say, okay, I can do that virtual lunch, or I really can get this complex product design done remotely with engineers who are in the same city because we're normally in the same office, but we can't come together.
Andrew, great stuff. Stay with us. I'll circle back to you here in a minute, please.
Will do.
Next up, Jack Hogan, VP of Technology Strategy, Cloud Go-to-Market at Pure Storage. Pure has been a great supporter of HMG's for some time now. Jack, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter. Great to be here today. Good to see you again.
Hey, when you think of workloads with cloud and SaaS, PaaS, all of the others and environments, and you have obviously all the legacy infrastructure supporting that. What comes to mind? What is right in your wheelhouse, and how can Pure help manage that whole roadmap?
Well, yeah. So first of all, Hunter, yeah, thanks for kind of teeing one up here for me. But I do want to really acknowledge that in this time of rapid acceleration. I mean, Gary said it earlier. This isn't going to be the new normal. This is an evolution of where we were in the past. And I think what we're seeing in the role that I sit in within Pure, focused on those companies that are really delivering the cloud. Recognizing that the cloud is not really a true destination; it's actually a mode of operations. And working with companies like SaaS companies like DocuSign and managed service providers, so get a broad view of what's happening in this accelerating time, and recognizing that as we look towards reimagining what businesses should be in a full agile new the new experience that Sanjay talked about of what that's like to elevate the experience for people to access the one and only thing that's permanent within an IT infrastructure stack, and that's their data. So, as you look across these environments, the IaaS and PaaS and SaaS environments, and being able to control that data and then leveraging the data for new innovation. It's been mentioned a couple of times today of what I think Andrew just talked about it with Terex, of being able to have access to just fleet-wide data and what that can mean for a business, democratizing the access of that. So, with Pure and how we're addressing that is, we transform the entire data center, introduce the concept of an all-flash data center, bringing everything to silicon chips and speeding up the access and really the speeds and feeds of that access to the data. But recognizing that it's not just the performance of the underlying systems, but it's really the outcomes that can be driven from the data that sit in these systems. And so, Pure is now taking that same technology that we used. It's a software-based system, and have extended that into multiple public cloud environments, and really created a true strong hybrid capability, leveraging the exact same operating system, same capabilities, bringing the cloud capabilities into legacy environments, allowing for things like full orchestration, introduction of the true cloud principles into legacy workloads, but then allowing extension to where the workloads are moving. We see a 20-30% move towards the migration of towards these cloud workloads. I think the poll that was asked earlier highlighted some of the perceptions of the CIOs on the call here. Before joining Pure, I was a CTO for 20 years in a mid-market digital company, and recognize that that agility to evolve means that you've got to have a baseline strategy. And again, it goes back to that data and how you can extend the access to data, making it cloud-like in terms of the experience that you need to be able to access. And then really simplifying things. So this is the core asset of what Pure provides. And it plays out for us. Kristen mentioned earlier about how people just love DocuSign and the platform. Pure in a similar sense. We've got an NPS score of 82, top 1% of all B2B businesses out there, because we really make things simple. One of the core principles that we brought to the access of data, and recognizing that we're in this kind of broader storage industry, we brought in people that were, the early stage engineers and all the way through that they didn't think like traditional storage engineers. They came from cloud companies. They came from other software engineering environments to allow that. Okay, why have we always done things this way with storage? Let's reimagine this kind of new experience and introducing that simplicity. But then also, really driving towards that continuous innovation. Pure has consistently, outperformed the market. Massive market share gains over the last decade, and we've done that by constantly innovating and recognizing that we are evolving, as Gary said, and being able to leverage a software-based storage platform that extends all the way back to that legacy, all the way into whatever the clouds of the future are going to be, and allowing your data to really sit in the center of that and allow that democratization. So I think that's where Pure sits right now. clearly an area that I'm spending a lot of time with these companies, but I think that it's a renaissance time for digital transformation, and we're helping a lot of companies on that journey.
Thanks, Jack. When you think about blind spots for a CTO or CIO, what are the top 1, 2, 3 blind spots? CIOs?
Yeah, great question. Listen, I think that having been there, recognizing that lock-in is really one of the core things to avoid, is locking yourself into placing large bets or large assets into locations that either not secure, not going to meet your needs in 5 plus years. So having that long view of maintaining control of the core assets, so I think that's one of the main areas that CIOs need to really look around the corner and recognize they've got to deal with the tech that exists within their environments, but keep that flexibility to constantly innovate. And I think the other is recognizing that the models of the past have really tied up access to capital. If we think about large transformation projects, they oftentimes involve the outright purchasing of new equipment. I think we're seeing the shift from a CapEx mindset to an OpEx mindset because of that it's a lock-in in sense, but really freeing up the capital that's being spent on that. And Pure has led the market in creating a cloud economic model around really a usership of the platforms to avoid that lock-in, also to allow that capital to be pulled forward and used in other ways to either innovate on the platform, to drive new business. So recognizing that that you can do things differently, free up that trapped capital, turn that into new innovation, and get further up the innovation curve. So I think those are a couple of the main principles that I think that CIOs, CTOs should be looking is have a base platform that allows you to control your core asset, but avoid the lock-in that really ties up your capital, locks you into risk factors that you may not recognize are coming.
Jack, thanks for coming on the program. Really appreciate your thoughts and support.
Yeah.
Next up, Brandon Johnson. He's a Senior Vice President, CIO of Korn Ferry. Brandon and I have known each other probably 8 to 10 years now. Brandon, great to see you.
Sure, great to see you as well. Hopefully you can see me on the video here.
Loud and clear. You're coming in just fine. You're coming in from LA?
That's correct. Yep. Corporate headquarters.
Great. Hey, a little background, your military background. I always find it fascinating. Give us a soundbite on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks. So obviously prior to coming to Korn Ferry, I was CIO for a mid-sized consulting company, publicly traded. But before that, 20 years in the Marine Corps, I was a Marine aviator, flew a variety of aircraft, F-18s, A-6s, spent a portion of my career, the last part of it, managing technical support for the Marine Corps' deployed systems worldwide. So anything that goes to the battlefield or to an exercise that's computer related gets supported out of Camp Pendleton for the Marine Corps. So I headed up that. So a wide range of roles.
Thanks for your service. Great job. Hey,
Thanks,
when you think of Korn Ferry, what a great top-notch firm in your role there. How did you get selected, right? Straight out of the gate, early on in your working there, right, with the CEO, Gary, on the whole future work task force and the COVID response, right?
Yeah. Great question. So I've only been with Korn Ferry for 9 months, although, given the COVID pandemic, it feels like 9 years at this point. I think everything's kind of compressed. In my previous background, I think given the military background, ability to manage crisis, et cetera, probably lent itself to being selected to lead the company's global COVID task force. So that's one aspect. I think the other is all CIOs have some aspect of managing crisis through disaster recovery, if not business continuity as a whole for the company. And I think by owning that, you're constantly thinking about how you manage a crisis for the company, because like it or not, virtually every company is dependent on technology. So I think there's a logical extension of that for any CIO to be in this role.
Interesting times. What have you learned? What are the lessons that you've learned through that managing and leading that practice or that process?
Sure. Well, I think, there's probably a couple of things. One is just, if you look at it from a technology perspective, right, we're all forced to do this sudden tectonic shift of everything to work from home where possible, altered a lot of behaviors. But I think that the question of what do we learn is whether this is going to be permanent or not, and what things we should take forward with this. And my view is that it is going to be permanent, or a good portion of it will be permanent. We will be more technology enabled, dependent, and driven than we were before. We did a survey of our company globally, and 95% of the company said it could work from home fully with the technology it has right now. Now that may not be surprising. We're in the professional services realm. But what was a little bit surprising was the fact that more than 70% globally would choose working from home as their primary location. So I think that's a lesson learned in this, is that we now have the perspective of the employees themselves. And I think I heard Gary earlier mention that this is the path forward to success, is learning or helping enable employees to work where they want to work, and considering a hybrid action or a hybrid environment for that. I would also say that, the other lesson learned is that technology providers are rapidly shifting and adapting their offerings to this new environment. Zoom is a great example of, doing a tremendous job at this very rapidly. And, despite probably some stones being thrown at them, they stepped up and have done an amazing job. I think the second thing is, and this is the broader view, is that, while in this role as a leader for the COVID task force globally, I deal with things like real estate and organizational structure and process changes and how we're doing client delivery. But I think the big one is culture. And, as we're looking forward, I think we really need to think about it. Our CEO, Gary Bernstein, he says an organization can only change as fast as its culture allows. And we're a company that's used to having localized teams work together by habit. They do coaching, mentoring, et cetera, in a ad hoc or physical way. And so if we switch to primarily working remotely, will we be able to maintain that cohesion, that camaraderie, and ultimately performance? I believe we can, but it's just going to take time, deliberate time spent building the muscle around this. So that might be the big, maybe not yet a lesson learned, but something we need to be leaning forward and thinking about.
Thank you, Brandon. As a company that's focused on talent acquisition, how do you think companies in the future will access talent and grow and build talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I think the pandemic really creates some opportunities here. I mean, one of the opportunities is that creates the ability to be more objective, more data driven, and more inclusive in our approach to finding and assessing and acquiring talent. Without having as much in-person time, I think it becomes critical to have a comprehensive view of candidates early in the cycle for any position. I think it'll place more emphasis on evaluating the candidate using objective measures of performance, understanding their traits, drivers, competencies, as well as their experience. So, Korn Ferry, for example, uses a variety of scientific-based psychometric evaluation tools to help assess fit, potential performance, and I think we'll see deeper and broader use of that. Certainly within our own company, but I think clients out there will ask for that. I think the second thing is that, in this new world, it's going to drive a demand for new or evolved skills, Hunter. I think, obviously, the questions around, do you have technically fluent or technologically fluent, employees and leaders is first and foremost. Do they have the attributes needed to be successful in a virtual environment? And, that's everything from, I think, organizational skills and different leadership styles. Do they have the ability to build teams, lead, and motivate in a virtual environment? I think these things are going to become more important. And I would say, while not all the skills are new for all positions, the pandemic's going to act as an accelerant for some trends that were already underway and probably create new demands. If I thought about it, I would say we all probably need to proactively ask certain questions, which is, is our talent fluent in critical technologies? Do we have a point of view on success in a virtual environment? And are we shaping our talent strategies to ensure our organizations are successful in this changed world?
Hey, Brandon, great job. Stay with me here. We'll circle back. Excellent.
Thanks, Hunter.
Hey, Kirsten, welcome back to the program. There you are.
Yeah, sorry, I was finding my Zoom. How do I get on? How do I get my my voice back on?
You're good. Hey, It's said that culture eats strategy for lunch. I've heard that a few times. How do you maintain a company culture with a remote workforce?
You know, I mentioned this in my prior comments. I think really there is a lot of extra effort that needs to go into creating the connection. We have an impact foundation at DocuSign, one of our values being responsible and really wanting to reach out into our communities. So one of the ways is we've tried to provide virtual opportunities for our employees to give back in the environment. A few weeks ago, we were a co-host with a number of the other cloud companies in the Bay Area of Workforce Week. We know that one of the things that COVID has done is really impact employment, and many people are out of work as a result of the pandemic. And so we volunteered across DocuSign in our Seattle offices and in our San Francisco offices to help some individuals who are newly unemployed work on their resumes, to do, you know, they haven't been out of work probably in many of them for a long time. So how do you refactor your resume? How do you interview? And how do you interview remotely? And so through things like this, we are bringing that culture, that heart of DocuSign, that love to our employees, and being able to demonstrate that we're using all that creativity and all of that innovation to find ways to continue to reach out in our communities and continue to give back.
Love it. Great job. Hey, Kirsten, when you think about career tips for women in technology, is that a passion?
It's a definite passion. I spend a lot of my time mentoring women and helping them through the career journey. There's a great body of work that was done by Sally Blount, former dean of the Kellogg School of Management, which is my alma mater, and got my MBA there. And she talks about women in their 3 pivot points. First is that launch, that first 10 years or so. The middle is that mid-career marathon. Those middle bits are really hard for women. And then the transition to the executive transition is that 3rd pivot point. And so I really like to spend time with women who are in launch and recognizing that, you know, this is the time where you really need to, you know, have your foot on the gas as hard as you possibly can, and really be fighting for those opportunities and growing as much as you can. Oftentimes people think of growth as being a ladder going straight up, but growth during those first 10 years, this is where you need to be trying everything. You need to be really expanding your skill set and your capabilities. So when that next sort of higher from a title perspective comes up, you've got a much broader capability set that you're going to be able to bring to the role. Excellent. So it's, I think that we've made some progress, but we still have a long way to go from an equality perspective with women, and particularly women of color. So very committed to that.
We're in the process of launching a diversity summit as well as a women tech leaders summit. We'll be in touch.
Yes.
Thanks, Kirsten, for coming on the program.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. Hey, Andrew, come on back. Final comments on your leadership style and what you're thinking about now.
So my leadership style, I think, resonates in one of the company values that we have, which is servant leadership. And it's something I hadn't ever seen in a company's values. And I found it very intriguing when I first interviewed with the company to find out, was that real, right? And the image that we have that goes with it shows the ladder going up in terms of the support. You know, I'm an individual who likes to be successful at what I do, but I know that I'm never going to be successful on my own. And me helping others around me, whether that's peers, leaders, or folks that work for me in my team, whatever I can do to help them be successful, help them grow, ultimately is going to yield success back. I'm also one who is very passionate about where I work and what, you know, I want a company that's bringing something good into the world and that you can really get your heart into as well. You asked, where do I think some of the things are going in the future? You know, I I look and say this world, we live in a digital world. There's nothing you can do nowadays that you're not going to have some digital implication, even if it's just trying to stay away from it. But I think what it means for IT organizations, where long ago somebody told me, hey, you realize your job is everybody's hobby. Well, I think we actually need to kind of accelerate that, right? I think this notion of how do we actually put technologies in the hands of our business partners or the hands of our customers that they can actually shape and mold it to be what they need it to be, right? Whether you start thinking of this citizen developer kind of mode with no or low code tools and so forth. I think that's something that we're going to see accelerate as we figure out, IT organizations are never going to be big enough to meet the demands of the companies that we work for. So we need to figure out how we actually harness the fact that we have more and more digitally savvy people working in our companies and around the world.
Andrew, thanks for coming on the program today. Great job.
Thank you. Good
to see you. Hey, Jack, you still there? Of
course.
Yeah, hey, a little bit about your leadership style.
Yeah, well, listen, Hunter, I love empowering people to do where their strengths are. I think that, oftentimes we really focus too much on trying to retrain people and get them to focus in areas that are uncomfortable for them. Now, I'm also very much lead with the mantra of getting my teams to become comfortable being uncomfortable, because that allows for new ideas, new transformation, but also putting them into places of where they'll be successful and where they'll add the most value, and recognizing that a team should be made up of many diverse individuals, different backgrounds, different experiences. As I mentioned earlier, Pure has done a very good job of bringing different mindset to truly transform the data storage industry. And so I take that as one of my kind of personal ways of leadership, of recognizing that, I certainly can't dictate the right answers from my team, but I can assemble the team, put them in positions, challenge them to create stretch goals, get them to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and allow them to really extend beyond with the power of the team. I think too often people focus on themselves and don't recognize that the people to the left of you, the people to the right of you, are just as uncomfortable in those scenarios. And when you reach out and you recognize that you can rely on their strengths and they can rely on yours, you get the best out of your team. And it's been a way that I've been successful with, whether it's a development team, operations team, go-to-market teams, and it seems to work well.
Jack, thanks so much for coming on the program. Good stuff. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you, Hunter. Thanks.
And Brandon, you still with us? Brandon, you want to come back on the program here?
Yeah, still here.
Yeah, just final comment, final word on leadership style, and some interesting comments here.
Sure. I spent a lot of time thinking about leadership. I've been fortunate to have been in some of the greatest organizations. I think that, again, I'm biased as a Marine. I felt the Marine Corps laid a great foundation for me with respect to leadership. I think leadership starts with character. Character is built on values. So, the Marine Corps had the values of, honor, courage, and commitment. And leaders are expected to emulate and live those values every day. Korn Ferry's values are, inclusion, honesty, knowledge, and performance. And we live those values every day. And I think leaders set the expectation that their teams and that their organization will live up to those values to the best of their ability every day. So I would say, my goal as a leader is to lead by example and live those values.
Hey, Brandon, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the program. That's
likewise. Thanks, Hunter.
Can't do any better than that. Great job.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
We'll see you soon. Next up is our signature executive search panel. It's an industry search executive update. Hey, Beverly Lieberman is the president of Holbrook and Lieberman Associates. Beverly and I have been collaborating now for over 20 years. Beverly, are you there?
I'm here. Nice to be here, Hunter.
Great to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. Nice, warm, sunny day in Westport, Connecticut.
What's on your mind, Bev?
Well, gosh, it's been a real interesting 3 months. And I personally am really tired of not being able to go and hug somebody and shake hands with somebody or have a cup of coffee. I think we're starting to feel like we're going to be able to do that. But it's really been a challenge in the executive industry. Certain organizations have had to furlough and lay off, people, but in healthcare and other organizations, there's been growth. So, but the whole methodology for doing searches is different. You really do everything via Zoom or the equivalent. And you just hope that you're getting the fit right when you don't get to be in the company with the client and meeting people and seeing their workspace and what the water cooler talk is like. So it's, we're hoping for the best, but we're not sure how it's really going to work out.
Any virtual placements happen yet?
Very close.
Good.
One is in an offer stage. So luckily, I think it's going to happen, and this individual will never have set foot in the company's,
Excellent.
building. We'll see.
Hey, Bev, you do coaching too, right?
I do. I coach CIOs and direct reports for a couple different causes. One is they're interested in their career ascent. Today, many CIOs are looking to figure out their next move. Will it be chief operating officer? Will it be board positions? So I help those individuals look at their portfolio, their experience, their presentation, and guide them on how to make that next step.
Excellent stuff. What's next, do you think? The economy opens up, the fourth quarter, things get moving, 2021, we're off to the races again?
I think we're going to see a substantial uptick later in the fall. I know for sure the world's waiting for a vaccine, and our feeling of security around, meeting and getting together will be much improved at that point. But in the meantime, I see, companies thinking about moving ahead and planning to move ahead and still needing talent at the helm of their IT organization. So none of that has changed. I think it's still a great time for being a CIO or a CTO or a CISO in the market today.
Great. Thanks, Bev. Stay with us. We'll circle back to you. Jamie Cummings, he's a senior client partner at Korn Ferry. Jamie, welcome to the program.
Good to see you as always, Hunter. Thanks for your time.
Excellent. You coming in from Dallas?
I am in lovely Frisco, Texas.
Okay, and another Marine too?
No, I'm a frogman. I interacted with Marines, but I was a SEAL.
So that's Navy.
Yes. And gotcha. Brandon wouldn't want to tell you this, but the Marine Corps is a department of the Navy, but we're all still good friends.
There's a little pecking order there, I guess. Interesting. Good stuff. Do you have to serve to be a Korn? No, I'm just joking. Just kidding. What are you seeing in the industry? Give us an industry update.
I think one thing I would tell you is that over the course of the last few months, and this demand preceded even COVID, is we saw a significant uptick in demand for information security talent. So I've had more CISO searches in the last few months probably than I did the prior 9 months combined. Not just me, our team. Yeah, I think there's a host of reasons for that. One of them is my observation is that it comes and goes in waves. There's times where the CISOs settle in, call it 2-3 years, they accomplish what they're meant to accomplish, but there's so much demand, they get plucked out, and a little bit of musical chairs starts to happen. I think that the CISO function from a maturity perspective it's behind the CIO function. So there's not as many number twos on the bench who are either actually ready to or perceived to be ready to step up into the top role. As such, firms like us are called in to help dislodge someone else and place them in the top role, ideally someone who's been a CISO, and the cycle continues. I think it speaks to the ongoing importance of developing that next level of talent. Just like developing a vaccine, it takes time. But I think to echo what Bev said, there will continue to be significant demand for information security professionals. And I'll give you one anecdote. We had a client, they're in the consumer products restaurant industry, and they're looking for a number two, a deputy, if you will. And they put the search on hold. And then about 2 months later, they came back and said, all other hiring is currently still on hold other than this role and a handful of other information security roles. So I think that speaks to the extent to which organizations realize that you can't punt on information security. The threats are not only going away, but they're increasing. And the other piece is I would also agree with Bev that I've not seen the wave yet, but we as a team here internally, Korn Ferry's technology officers practice, we believe probably rough order of magnitude, same time frame, there will start to be demand, because what's going to happen is you're going to have the Brandons of the world who have stepped up and done a great job. They'll probably get more attention, maybe get more budget and more talent. There'll be others who, quite frankly, will probably be seen by the organization who didn't have the organization as well prepared and or did not react well. And organizations may decide they want to upgrade their talent at the CIO level. And I suspect there will be some of that happening later this year. That's the world according to Jamie, but that's what I'm seeing.
So is that a reorg kind of idea, or is it just simply a shift back to the security function underneath the CIO?
Well, I think, looking at CIOs, I think there's some organizations that say, I think we need to do better. I think we need to find a new CIO.
Right, got it.
I do think that will happen. But then information security will continue to gain more prominence and attention within the technology and risk functions.
Interesting stuff. Stay with me, Jamie. We'll come back to you.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, next up, David Morris. David's the founder and CEO of a cool, interesting global company out of San Francisco, Hyper Solutions. David, welcome to the program.
Hi, Honor. Hi, everyone.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Hey, a little bit about Hyper, because you're definitely in a different box, different model.
Yeah. Well, I evolved out of executive search. I had run an executive search firm for about 6 years, and then was at Corporate Executive Board, CEB, running a lot of their tech practice on the West Coast. And ultimately, I zoomed in with my team on figuring out what is the best way that a CEO can drive change, a topic more relevant than ever before right now. And really, to build on Jamie's background, it came down to SEAL Team 6. It came down to SEAL Team 6. Because traditional military structure is not set up for change. But where you need change, there was a different type of organization model needed on the people side. And that's what we've been very busy at over the last few months, the extent to which we're working with large government agencies and CEOs who all of a sudden want a change effort. The question becomes how to best form the team. Our main focus is on the leader of the team. We call a hyper, a high impact performer. But what I will say is these people are under the radar. They're under political. They're not in it for the power of the title. So we're seeing a big shift, Hunter, into the profile of leader needed to drive change.
Interesting. And what is that profile?
The profile is, traditional leaders, when you look at their motivational profile, we have a lot of data behind this. It's about power, control, influence, and being able to make things happen. Hypers, on the other hand,
model.
The new one is hypers are really in it for the tour of duty. They're in it for a couple of year adventure to go make something meaningful happen. And the thing is, they're scattered. They'll go from tour to duty to tour to duty. So their resumes are a mess. They're a mess. They don't follow the traditional upward movement that executive search usually looks for. Now we see that changing, but that's really the focus on the hyper leader.
So what about driving massive innovation programs or transformation programs? Those don't happen overnight. They take multi-year.
Yeah, well, we're finding 90% of the success is in the executive sponsorship. So our biggest challenge as an organization is seeing how real a company is for the change. So, whether it's the governor of a state or it's the chairman of the board, the question is they may say we want change, but how serious are they? How much air cover are they willing to give to that hyper? And that's really the biggest advice we have to the hyper. Make sure your executive sponsor is going to give you the air cover. Otherwise, don't sign up.
Excellent. All right, got it. Thanks, David. Appreciate you coming on the program. Bev, why don't you take your microphone off mute, and yourself, Jamie, we'll run this like a panel. David, you too as well. When you just kind of jumping off or triggered from David's comment around hyper leaders or innovative leaders, Bev, what are companies looking for right now? What do they want out of their tech leader?
So, you know, it's often the same thing, right? So whatever that leadership model is for that company, they're looking for that. So, you know, it goes without saying, I mean, it sounds a little trite, but it's about being inspirational. It's about integrity. It's about getting people to rally around your vision. It's your ability to get people to work under extreme conditions and perform well. And so, you know, we have a shortage of those kinds of people. I don't think people are born inherently with all of those capabilities. So it's something to hone. And, you know, when I talk to people that want to get to that level, I talk to them a lot about preparing for being able to rise to that capability.
Good stuff. Jamie, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. The other thing I think that the common theme that I've picked up their clients looking for, it's almost like the general manager of technology. So I think the really successful and impactful technology leaders are business first, and try not to use the phrase talking to the business, because you are part of the business, right? So I think it's a nuanced but important difference in that you really can walk a mile in the shoes of the stakeholders and have that genuine interest and understanding of what matters to them. And I think that I've observed that the CIOs and the CISOs that we interview who are effective get others to buy in by doing that. And rather than trying to explain to them, you actually get them to, guide them there yourself, because you understand what their priorities are. So I guess it boils down to business acumen, relationship building, and influencing that really lead to success in CIOs. And that's what our clients are very frequently looking for.
Excellent.
Just building on what Jamie just mentioned, particularly for the CISO role, and we've been working quite a bit with the CISO for the state of California. And what I have found is this role has just become increasingly cross-functional. So even if it has the executive sponsorship, as I mentioned before, from the top, the reality is a lot of the times the funding, as we know, is going to come from other areas. So this ability for the CISO to really drive cross-functional leadership and create a Super Bowl win that people are going to lean in on is absolutely paramount.
Bev?
I'd like to add that, you know, with these attributes around leadership that we're discussing, and to pick up on Jamie's comments about leading as a business person first and a technologist second or third, this is creating opportunities beyond the corporate realm for CIOs to become board members of private and public companies. And I'm just very excited that, you know, in our FWSIM chapter in Fairfield County, Westchester County, I know at least a dozen CIOs or former CIOs in our chapter that have taken on board positions, and some are on boards of publicly traded companies. So I think that the future really looks promising for business-oriented technology leaders who are serious about their career ascent and will find themselves capable of sitting on boards and contributing at a major strategic level.
Fascinating stuff. You know, we had been really focusing on diversity now, Bev, and having a diverse organization. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's long since overdue. And I've had clients for the last 20 years that have really voiced their desire for me to, you know, to recruit women and other diverse candidates. And so, you know, I've made it my business to have a great database of those people. But I think there's progress being made, and especially even at the board levels, you know, women are in high demand. Women with technology background and business are in very, very high demand to make up for the limited numbers of women. And that's true for people of color. So it's kind of their era, and rightfully so.
Thanks, Bev. Jamie, final comments?
I just want to follow up on that. I think as you might imagine, we get a lot of demand for not only strong talent, but certainly diverse talent. But, you know, the phrase I use sometimes is musical chairs. You know, what we can do is we can pluck someone from one place to another, but that doesn't solve the bigger issue of talent in the pipeline. So hopefully these, you know, the prominent women and people color that are in these board and CIO roles can inspire others earlier in their career to continue and to progress into more senior level roles, because you can't create the talent that's not in the pipeline earlier. So ultimately, you know, the folks in your peer group on this call can be ones who are really driving a lot of that inspiration that lead to diversification, not just at the top levels, but that next generation of leaders needs to be built now.
Excellent stuff. David, final word?
Yeah, I think going back to the skills for the next generation leader, to take a little pressure off of each of us, I would think a little bit about the yin to your yang. Okay, and going back to the SEAL Team 6 example, who are the 2 or 3 people that together, you know, the 3 or 4 of you are able to accomplish anything? And I think we're going to start seeing increasingly companies recruit teams. We've seen it with acqui-hires, but I think they're going to start moving away from hiring executives and they're going to hire teams. Because if you want to make change happen, you got to make sure those 3 or 4 people work great together. Best way to do it is to recruit them from another organization. It's also a way to increase your salary significantly. You get recruited as a team. So I would really be thinking to the audience about who best complements you. So collectively, you bring that diversity of thought and you bring that ability to solve the change problem rather than putting all the pressure on yourself.
Great stuff, David. Hey, David, Jamie, Bev, great to see you all. Thank you so much for coming on. Anyone who's still on the Zoomcast, if you want to turn your camera on, the speakers, please do. Brandon, Andrew, Kirsten, if you're still with us. Really, Boyden, really appreciate you all being here today. This was a world-class summit, our best summit in Seattle in 8 to 10 years. So really, truly appreciate your active engagement in making a difference. We'll actually pull together a compilation of the best of out of this program and broadcast it on our national global network as the best from Seattle. So big thanks to our partners today, Pure Storage, Zoom, and Archtrace, and all of the speakers right here, you all. Thanks, and be in touch.
Thank you, Hunter.
Thank you.
Hunter, thanks. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.